Welcome to the Meditation Conversation, the podcast to support your spiritual revolution. I'm your host, Kara Goodwin, and I'm really excited for you to hear this amazing episode with Jessie Herman, who channels Vagrant. Jessie is a life coach, pranic energy healer for people and their pets, an artist, and the channel for the non-physical entity group known as Vagrant. We start by getting to know Jessie, and the particular similarities in our life paths has been really striking to me. She also shares insights into how she began working with Vagrein and what it's like for her to channel them. And about halfway in, we invite Vagrein in, and Jessie steps aside, and we get into some excellent insights from Vagrein. I really love the way they take complex topics and make them easily relatable through metaphor. It's also fascinating how these brilliant responses come through so fast. It's as though Jessie's mouth can't form the words fast enough. I think you'll really get a lot out of this episode, and if you're like me, you'll want to watch it multiple times to really try to let their wisdom soak in. Be sure to check out Jessie's Some Kind of Mystic podcast and her YouTube channel at JP Herman. I also encourage you to check out karagoodwin.com, where you can get a free 10-minute meditation. If you want to develop your own meditation practice, I have a 21-day online program to help you. There's also the Healing Hearth membership, where you can have live online assistance with your questions about meditation and life. And you can also get a personalized recorded meditation/energy transmission to help you get through whatever challenges are showing up in your life. I also have a powerful sacred geometry workshop series that's available. All of that and more on karagoodwin.com. And now enjoy this episode. Welcome, Jessie. I'm so excited that you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited too.
So much of your story resonates with me, which makes me extra excited because from what I understand, I think we're roughly the same age, and we kind of kicked off our spiritual paths at the same sort of time. And you live in Italy and are from Canada. And I lived there for 4 years. That was the site of my spiritual awakening as well. I've been back now for almost 6 years. And I'm from the US. I'm in the US. But so there are differences there, but very similar. Like, I see a big reflection of myself in you, which is, we always like that as people, don't we?
For sure. Absolutely.
So can we talk a little bit about I'd love to know how you ended up in Italy and how you came to channel Vagrein and your awakening.
So I'm from Montreal, Canada. And before coming to Italy, I went to live in England for 4 years. So that decision was
yes.
quite...
And I also...
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I also I forgot about that. I lived in England for 4 years from 2002 to 2006. So
we just missed each other.
Forgot.
I left.
Yes.
Well, no, we overlapped maybe by 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I left there in 2004. Fun. Exactly. Lots of synchronicities or things just lining up. So we're, I always say, like, another version of you, right? So this is just like those little things. Blonde, brunette, this place, that place, but kind of like, oh, interesting. That's so cool. So I'm Canadian and I went to live in England. That was kind of like a spontaneous decision. I was like, okay, I'm going. And then I was living in England and I went to get, my leave to remain. Being a Commonwealth citizen, after a certain amount of time, after working and having the right paperwork, you're meant to be able to, apply for a longer type of work visa. And I waited in line, as you do at these places, for, I think, 4 hours. Got to the front of the line, had all my documents, and stressed for those 4 hours. Do I have everything I need? Do I have everything I need? And I got to the wicket, right? The gate thing. And they informed me that I'd have to stay in the same job for another 2 years. So I had all the paperwork. I'd been there long enough, but you had to be in the same job consistently. So I was allowed to stay, but the condition was staying in the job. And basically, right in that moment, I was like, no, I'm going to do something else, and just decided to move to Italy. So, which is funny, a pivot, basically. And came here and studied computer graphic design, sort of stuff like that. Then moved on to animation, and it's not like there's a huge market here for that. So then afterwards, just moved into having a family, and doing other things. So yeah, it's been strange. Nothing's ever stuck, really.
Yes, I love that. I mean, I can completely relate to being in the immigration office or whichever type of office it is, but um and well, I can't necessarily relate to just taking that pivot right in that moment, but
Hmm.
feeling that that sort of your back's against a wall, like, is this what I want or not? But wow, that's fascinating. So did you have connections in Italy that drew you there, or you just loved
Yeah,
that place?
my boyfriend at the time was Italian. His family lived in Milan, and the plan was, or the idea was, at least in my head, that I would decide to go to Italy and he would just come along. Now that wasn't how it went, and that's fine. But it's funny in retrospect. I really have a lot of gratitude for my inability to, in certain moments in my life, to not listen to that inner, almost like launch off a cliff, because I know that a lot of people really struggle with that. They know what's the next step for them, but that they spend a long time in fear or in doubt. And I really haven't ever had that experience of being in fear or doubt when I have like these urges, to move forward very quickly. And also, people going, "Are you crazy? That doesn't make any sense." And me going, "No, that's just what it is." So I do really value that. And it was sort of what brought me to Italy. You asked about the spiritual side of things. I had just had my daughter. It was 2011, and I had some postpartum depression. I had kind of a traumatic childbirth situation, and didn't really have time with a newborn in the house to go and get professional help for that at the times. And I knew I was struggling, and I knew that meditation was meant to help with that sort of thing. So I downloaded an app and I taught myself meditation, and it really did help with that sort of thing. But then I got the bug. I wanted to feel better all the time. I wanted to not believe some of the thoughts I was having, or being just a human, etc. And and so I got into my spiritual journey, discovering different books, different teachers, different wisdom traditions. And it was much later that, or much later, relatively later, 8 years later, that I started channeling. And probably for about 3 years before that, I was spending all my time trying not to channel. And so, I had a lot of resistance to
Oh,
becoming a channel.
so tell us about that. What do you mean by you were trying to resist it?
Um, so about, I guess, like 4 or 5 years into my spiritual journey of meditation and reading up on things and being exposed to their teachings, I started to have, I guess, like, psychic abilities come back online. I say back online because as a child, I would see things and tell people about them, and they would say, "No, you're exaggerating," or "You're too creative," or "Oh, you have such a wild imagination." So I stopped telling people about it, and I stopped trusting that they were real. Um, then those types of experiences started coming back into my field of awareness, and things started happening again. And I didn't want to go back
So
to,
were you
telling
seeing
people.
things?
I wasn't seeing things. I don't
I'm
have that much
sorry.
visual.
There's oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't have that much visual perception. That's something, I don't know if that's true. That's one of the light switches I didn't turn back on, or I don't turn back on very often, because seeing like ghosts and stuff is not necessarily pleasant. And so I'm not interested in
Yeah.
sort of that level frequency. And I think that's what's connected to my visual cortex more directly. But definitely hearing, not hearing voices, and it's not really even ears, but it's the same part of the brain that processes that gift. And so, hearing things and knowing things, etc. And almost a request, some energy, a request to channel. And I didn't even know what channeling was, but a request for messages to come through. And so my response to that was always no, I'm not going to be that person. I don't want to be that person. Until one day I got fed up. It was my 40th birthday, and I was fed up. And I said to the energy, I said, "Listen, I'll do what you're, guiding me to do." Because it wasn't like, here's the instructions. It was like, I will
Mm.
release into this guidance, and I'll prove to you. I'll prove to you that it doesn't work. I'm not the right person. Go bother somebody else. And they proved to me that I was. So, yeah. I lay down and put on a recording app on my phone. And when I came out of trance, there was talking on the recording. That's how it started.
Wow. So when you channel, do you feel, because if I remember correctly, I have read your book, Seeking Ends When Sharing Begins, which
Yes.
is phenomenal. I highly recommend that to anybody who's listening. If I remember correctly from that, when you listened back to the recording, you were amazed by what came through. So when you channel, are you kind of in the background, like you don't have a lot of awareness of what's going on, or what is it like for you?
So it's almost as if I'm having a completely different experience than the body is having, because my memory isn't connected to what's going on. So I would say it can be at times like a dream state. Um, I don't actually remember cognitively any of the conversation, but I'm trying to become more aware of how it is while I'm in there. I'm aware of the mechanics sometimes, like remaining in a trance state. I can be aware of that sometimes. And I'll get what I call impressions sometimes that are either information that Vagreint's giving only to me to later share with the participants, or because of the energy packet that they're delivering, there are visuals that go with that. So when I'm in the trance state, I often get visual descriptions that are maybe related to the session, that are extremely realistic and vivid and elaborate. Like they're so elaborate. They're not able, like, there's no words to describe what I see. But much of what we associate with us being ourselves doesn't exist when I'm channeling. So it's very hard for me to even understand, like, where do you go or what is happening, because it's almost as if it's only your essence that remains. So you exist, but you're not existing in the way you normally do as a human. So it's very interesting.
So it sounds like for you, it's really easy to tell the difference between like when the thoughts are yours versus
Yeah.
when they're Vagrian's.
Oh yeah, none of the thoughts
Yeah,
are mine. I know that
that's
there is a filter. You are the vessel that it comes through. So things do will get painted by the way your brain particularly works. So, for example, at the beginning, Vagrein had me reading the thesaurus. They weren't happy with my level of vocabulary. So,
really
yes. So they had me go off and, read through the thesaurus to build up vocabulary. Not awareness, like not for me to memorize stuff, but it was almost, they said, like, if you read it, it'll just get put into the brain and then we'll have more of a database of the correct things that we want to say, because they're very particular about
fascinating.
words. And there will be times even in a channeling session where they're not finding the right word. And to me, it feels like a Rolodex is running, like the old fashioned, like,
Mm.
flipping through the cards system. It goes, "Zzz." And I can, I feel, when that's occurring, like, oh no, I'm in trouble. There's no, I don't have the word they're looking for. And so
I need
it's
to
quite
go back
funny.
to the thesaurus.
Yeah, but it's funny because it's not a conscious awareness. And I guess, they do talk a lot about how like time and location are human illusions. I think what happens when you're in trance channeling is you're popping into that existence. So again, it's like without time, can memory exist? I don't know. So there's a lot to really look into that. And I know there's some scientists that are looking into that, but it is a fascinating sort of avenue of wondering, how does this work?
Yes. I know. I also am curious about the magnetics and memory. Like I heard something recently that was like if the magnetic field on the planet, dissolve or because it's weakening, and it's like
Mhm.
if it weakens too much, will like that's what's holding memory in, and so
Oh,
most people could lose their memory. But it makes me think too. We have our own electromagnetic field in the body, so what does that have to do with our memory too? And makes me wonder as you're talking about that, like what does the electromagnetic field of the body do to help hold that energy in or give it a release, or what, how I'm fascinated by those types of things too. It's interesting.
same.
So do you work with have you had other um groups come in or other entities come in that you've worked with besides Vagrian?
So no, I don't work with anyone else at the moment. I don't know if that'll change over time. I do know that sort of, when I was younger, in terms of like experimenting with psychic abilities, um, when working with like a Ouija board, which I don't do anymore, there's access to other energies. And at the time I didn't know I was a channel. Now I understand that my experiences with Ouija board are probably very much related to that, like the facility in which it was able to occur was the openness that is available for these entities. And then there have been several instances in my life where people who have passed have come specifically to me to, help them with their family members or whatever. But again, I'm not a medium. And as far as right now, the energy and the frequency that Vagrein has that comes through is what feels good to me to share. Um, Also because we have such a huge level of trust with one another. That's been built up, and I know that I can trust they're not going to say anything that would go against my values on what think from a thinking point of view. I don't want to impact anyone in any form of negative way, right? That can't be avoided in some cases when you're human, but if you're channeling, you want to make sure that whatever's coming through you is not going to abuse its power. It's not going to try and drive people in a direction based upon some sort of agenda that you're not in alignment with. So I'd be a little bit, weary about starting another relationship with another energy right now.
That makes complete sense. Fascinating that you bring up the Ouija board too. I've thought about that recently too, where I'm like, what happened to the Ouija board? That was such a thing
Yeah,
growing up.
it was a
And
thing.
I never hear about them anymore.
No,
I don't know what happened.
I just set up like a whole. I just did all my notes for not a podcast episode, for a YouTube video about like talking about my experience with it and and why I don't use it anymore. But it's funny because it was, I guess it was in like a temporary fad, and I think it comes in and out of fashion. I don't know. Yeah, completely vanished.
Yeah. Yeah, which is interesting because, like, spiritual concepts have become more mainstream than when,
Yeah, absolutely.
80s, 90s sort of time when the Ouija board seemed such a hot topic and a hot commodity. And, I don't know that I had many slumber party experiences that did not involve a Ouija board,
Oh my gosh.
for better or worse. I was always kind of scared of it.
Yeah, I think all my
Oh,
friends
so
got scared off of it.
yeah, yeah. There were always, gosh, times are different now. Anyway, that's a whole other topic. But so how do you feel about inviting Vagrein in to join us?
For sure, that could work, and they're ready to go. So it takes me a couple
Okay.
minutes to get the chance, and then you just well, they'll say hello, and then you start asking
Okay.
questions. Okay.
Okay. That sounds great.
Good now to you. We are pleased to be meeting with you and your friends in this manner. In what way can we be of service in this now?
Hello, thank you so much for taking time today to be with us. I loved your book, Seeking Ends When Sharing Begins. And a common theme of that book was the importance of forgetting rather than remembering the self, which is a really unique way to think about that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, so there is no remembering, because the idea that you have that something has been forgotten does come from a place of believing that there is some striving to obtain, to do, in order to retrieve that lost thing. You are looking and looking for it. However, if you can understand that nothing has ever been lost, and instead, it is in your space, it is in yourself, and we do use the analogy of hidden under a pile of laundry, because all you have done is covered it up with your human experience. The human experience is the equivalent of the clothing you are wearing. It is that costume that you have put on for this period to play a role, to be the being that you believe to be and are accurate in believing would be the most entertaining, would be the most nourishing, would be the most satisfying to play in and with the themes of that character for a period of, yes, what you call time. However, beyond and beneath that particular cloak or clothing or costume is always that what was always there. It is the you that you are. And so that has not been lost. It has not been misplaced. It does not need to be found. You do not need to go to another country to find yourself. You simply need to take off that cloak every once in a while and look at yourself naked in the mirror. Now, we know that even in physical form, this can be difficult for yourselves at times. Because if you decide that you do not like what you see in the mirror, it becomes very scary and threatening to do so. That is what the ego is. To know that you are unified in all ways with all other beings can be terrifying for that costume, that character that you are playing. Because for that costume and that character that you are playing, they are committed to their role. This is not an act or a game for them. They are not a amateur performer. They are a star of the grandest of theaters. Therefore, to take off the costume right in the middle of the show would ruin the illusion, would it not? To let go of everything you have added onto yourself is far more easy than it is to imagine that digging underneath that costume, there is nothing, and that you then have to go and either create or find it somewhere else.
Okay, thank you. And what types of things make it easier for people to forget, to take the costume off?
Well, relaxing, experimenting, in that you can decide to take off a glove and see what happens. You do not evaporate the glove, yes, while not in that moment animated by the hand. We are still in metaphor. Does not have its life, does not have anything creating or controlling it. You can then see, does the hand still exist without the glove? And also giving yourself the freedom and the flexibility to say, well, I did choose this costume. It is also okay if I never take it off. It is also okay for me to enjoy this character that I've chosen to play. In this lightening of the situation for yourself, you have more freedom. You allow yourself to say, if I feel like it, I can easily take off any element of this costume, either one article at a time, one belief that does not serve me at a time, or I can decide to live fully within the roles that I have chosen and I am choosing and see where it is that would let me go. Also permitting yourself to do both simultaneously. You did decide to come and put on this costume. Therefore, whether or not you forget it, whether or not you, yes, you can use that other attempt, remember who you truly are, it really does not matter. What matters is you lighten your life so that you can be here and enjoy it to your fullest capacity, learning as much as you decided you wanted to learn, and truly relishing the opportunity of being in existence in this form for this now moment.
Thank you. That makes me wonder, is the purpose of life different for different people? It seems that many people feel that their life is to experience themselves more spiritually, more, underneath the costume. but other people have no interest in that. So are we all working towards one experience, or is it different for different people?
Well, what you are talking about when you refer to people is the costume. Because your beingness, your isness, does not have any desire other than to have the experience of that costume. So those whom are more spiritual and do have that particular theme playing out for their role and are down that journey or have just arrived on that journey or will head down that journey in some future moment, they have chosen that, and that is part of the feathers they have put in their hat. Someone who has not has put other feathers in their hat. So yes, there are different goals on the level of the human, but the human already is what you call spiritual. All of these things that we speak of exist whether or not one wants to explore them, and are not even necessary to be explored. In other words, you do not need to have a spiritual theme to have a life. You have not any criteria to then be worthy of your existence. So someone who is more spiritual or thinks themselves to be more spiritual than another is simply wearing a costume that thinks itself to be more spiritual than another. Your beautiful being who appreciates bird watching, who knows nothing of wisdom traditions, who knows nothing of chakras and crystals, who knows nothing of astrology, is no less spiritual. Neither is the bird.
I love that. Thank you.
We thank you.
What role does service play in life?
This too is a choice of themes, a choice of the embroidery on the costume. We will stay with this analogy because we're enjoying it. And there are those of you who choose to make that part of the theme because it is exciting to. It is exciting to be someone who could potentially be in service, to be someone who could potentially be of aid to others. The others do not exist, ultimately, however, because they are you. And if there is someone to be aided, it is in their role or their theme to be someone who needs aid. Therefore, you are in a symbiotic relationship, that of the one who is wanting to provide service and that in the one who is wanting to receive aid. And you are dancing together, which even more makes you connected more directly. But again, there is no need for anything except that you have chosen, out of the myriad of infinite possibilities, the things that you would like to come to this experience to experience, and you have your preferences, and it is within your right and your, shall we say, even role as a creator to attempt to have your preferences fulfilled, to attempt to be the person that you would like to be within this existence, no matter the circumstances, because often the circumstances are asking you to be unconditional about your isness. But service is not necessary because you can never not be in service. Even those beings that you seem to see are destructive in your societies, or that are not or seem to not be at all in service to others, are still in service to those whom are stimulated by their actions into service. And that in itself is service.
Oh my goodness. Yes, that's amazing. So for many people on this planet, they feel that they are having an experience that they didn't choose, that they don't wish to have. So they're living much in contrast with what they believe that they want or what they believe that they came here to experience. Can you talk a little bit about that life experience where you don't feel aligned?
Yes. So the first thing we will say, and it is a joke that we do not have inflection, is don't worry, it will be over soon. The second thing we will say is that when it is, and your human life is over, you do gain all of the perspective that you are seeking on what has occurred for you. because you are no longer limited to time and space, location, your own cognition, the brain, the body, and all of the things that you are perceiving of as limiting you in this now moment, including the circumstance, whatever's making you uncomfortable, whatever's causing your suffering. As soon as those aspects are lifted, what you will see is the perspective of how wonderful everything that was. Now, because luckily you do not have the ability to feel regret or guilt when you are non-physical, you will simply laugh. You will say how silly it was for me to have not wasted, because you will have understood that in this now moment you have expanded into a deeper understanding, but how silly and humorous it was that I took it all so seriously, that I forgot that I was mortal, that I forgot that it was temporary, that I forgot that physical sensation, whether it pain or pleasure, are equally unable to harm me. Yes, pain is not something that you would enjoy, but pain in and of itself is inconsequential. Pleasure in and of itself is inconsequential. These are sensations. Emotions are the same thing. Emotions of sadness are exactly the same energy flowing through you as the emotion of happiness. It is simply that you have a preference of one over the other. Therefore, if you can understand that you can be far less serious in this now moment, that is the key to existing outside of believing you did not choose it. You do not need to even believe you chose it. It is the case. You don't need to believe it. But what you are being asked to do by your discomfort is to claim ownership of your life. If you can do that, and if you can laugh while you are here, do develop a sense of humor, then you can, no matter the circumstance, evolve, expand, and feel the way you want to feel while you're in human form.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
So, can you talk about what the collective consciousness is? Because all of us are living our seemingly individual lives, but we also have this influence of the collective consciousness. And maybe let's begin just by talking about what that is.
We are selecting at what level to address this question, because there are infinite levels to come to an answer for this question. We will find one that assumes that the collective is human species on your planet. And we will start from that point. The
Thank
collective. We will also preface that would be only in this particular reality, or what you call reality, that we are referring to. Your collective would be the things or the energy that makes you human. If you can imagine that there is electricity that comes into your home, and there are different appliances in your house. There's the toaster, the refrigerator, there is the hair curler, there is the computer, the television, etc. The collective consciousness is the wire in which the electrical current, or the current traveling in that wire, which then splices off to those different components. They are all powered by the same electricity, and they are all influenced by any alteration in that electrical current. If it is cut off at the source, they all have a blackout for the day, for example. Or if there is a surge, they will all have the relevant issues with their particular functionality. So your collective consciousness is the electrical current, or the electricity, or the energy that is all that you are, that is animating the entire collective, and you are the equivalent of the different appliances within a home, the home being your planet, let's say. And therefore, this is what is connecting you, what is animating you. The thing with this particular consciousness, this collective, is that the electricity flows both ways. So as it does flow into the appliance, it also flows back out of that appliance into the general hub and into the others. And that is very much how your collective consciousness works. Therefore, if there are elements that are more potent, that are sending more energy back into that wire, and it is then being distributed to the others, they do have more influence over what is going on with the other aspects and elements. That said, each and every appliance has its own functionality, has its own function that it is meant to, or that it is using that energy to perform.
I love that analogy. That's so clear. Thank you so much.
We thank you.
Is there a way for individuals or seeming individuals, to utilize to help strengthen the collective consciousness to move in a more loving and positive direction?
Yes, it is in their own individual choices. And that is how all of decision making occurs. Because once you have determined that something is not to your preference, you have two choices. You can begin to be the version of you that is already had the changes that this is about to stimulate or that this is currently stimulating. Or you can remain in a version of you prior to the determining of the negative thing, so to speak, and continue in that energy frequency, hoping that the thing changes on its own. You can determine anything you do not want and immediately pivot to the thing that you do want. That will automatically affect the collective consciousness. There's also another element of this particular story, and this is why we asked earlier about the levels, or specified earlier about the level to which we were speaking to this, because ultimately, higher up, beyond the appliances, beyond the power station, beyond everything that is, there is the creator that created the ability for this electricity to exist in the first place. If you travel back up the wire far enough, you do arrive at the creatorship state. You do arrive at a deep knowing that everything that you are visioning, and this goes back to our friends who do not believe that they chose their reality, everything that you are seeing is for you and your evolution. So all of those beautiful negative, what you are calling negative things that you are seeing in the world, are there for you to rise to all of those occasions, to eliminate any beliefs you do not want anymore, to live the life that you want to live unconditionally, to develop values that are in alignment with yourself and your higher self. And far enough back up that wire, if you can really understand that you are the ultimate creator of all that is, yes, living in the costume, yes, having this particular incarnation, but yes, ultimately creating everything that you do see, you do end up with the creative clay to alter those things at will. But it does require a knowing that they are imperfection. It does require a knowing that they are not negative. And that is difficult for a human being to do.
That's beautiful. You mentioned about choosing the version of ourselves. We can choose the version if we want to have the future version that is able to withstand the challenges, for example, more easily. Can you talk about how we choose that version?
Yes. Let us give you an example of someone who is diagnosed with a disease, perhaps not a terminal illness, but something that they are not sure which way it is going to go. In this case, they are not facing a preference. They are facing something that they did not want, did not necessarily call into their life. But if in that moment, not necessarily of the diagnosis, we do always encourage to feel your feelings. Do not go around that element that is required. Feel whatever needs to be felt. But then, if you can, go and have a conversation with yourself, the version of you that is 6 or 12 months down the road, who has already cured this particular ailment, already had the difficult treatments, already had the situations and the circumstances and the emotional releases, etc. If you can have a conversation with that future self, the one you are imagining, yes, you can get their perspective. You can see how strong they are. You can embody some of that energy. Choosing to be that person now, choosing to know that all of that struggle, all of that pain did not kill you or did not harm you or made you a better person, even if you allow yourself to imagine that far. And then you can call that reality into your reality now, which, by the way, often will help you to avoid some of the discomfort that was waiting for you on your path otherwise.
Wow. Oh, that's amazing. Thank you.
We thank you.
So this has been an activating month for many on the planet, at least in my realm, in my reality. It's been a very activating month for a lot of people that I'm connected with. Can you tell us if there's any reason that you know of from your perspective as to why April 2024 has presented itself in this way?
Your asking is getting louder. Therefore, your receiving is also getting louder. Now, the question of asking and receiving is often misunderstood in that some of the teachings about frequency and vibration are promising that if you vibrate at a high enough rate, you will get your preference. This is not the case. Exactly. You will get what you are needing, and it is not always necessarily what you are wanting. But just like a child who needs nourishment for growing bones and wants the lollipop and does cry and scream and fret when they do not get it, and yet is content to be able to run a fast sprint because they have had the correct vitamins and nutrients for their physical form in the next days, that is in some ways what is occurring for you. So, catalyst is increasing based upon your desire to resolve catalyst. This does not seem to directly make sense, but many beings in that collective consciousness we mentioned before are desensitized to their own feelings. Therefore, the collective consciousness is asking for more feelings or more ability to feel in order to break through and allow whatever needs to be healed to be healed. You are a dramatic people or civilization. You do enjoy a good action movie. And so that is the script you are writing. You could, if you liked, also write a script where problems were resolved without any effort. But you do like those stories about the heroes. You do like those stories about the villains. The activations that you're feeling and your friends are feeling, those whom would listen to these words are feeling, are also directly related to the costume that you have on. Those whom are attracted to our messages have chosen to come here with a desire to be a part of the positive change, to be support to others, to be in service, yes, in an active way, as opposed to in the way that we spoke of earlier with your character who is perhaps not having good intention. And so these activations are occurring so that the belief in self can be very accessible. Gifts are turning on because you will need to use them. Does this help?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
We thank you.
It's a similar question, but about 2024 in, bigger than just this month. Many are predicting that 2024 will be a pivotal year, and I'm curious about what it looks like from your perspective, and if there's anything that you suggest that people do if it is a pivotal year to prepare.
Well, first of all, you have been ignoring the pivot for some years now anyway, in that these pivots that you are worried about and always saying next year is this pivot or this time is this pivot or this time is this crisis, etc. When these crises do arrive, you are barely even noticing them. It is because what is perceived of as the worst case scenario keeps happening and you do keep surviving. So you are already in a state of chaos compared to what was 10 years ago, are you not?
Yes.
And you are managing. Your preparation is in your moment to moment remaining aligned with who you are and not losing your compass and not losing your head and not falling into hatred or negativity. And that is the biggest preparation that you can do. Choosing now who you will be again when all of this is over and who you will be throughout it. If, for example, you have the desire to be a support for all beings on this planet, then it is in your interest to be a support to all beings on this planet. If instead it is a desire to do something else, such as create something that is of use to someone or continue working on your art or whatever else it might be, then that is the way that you are remaining true to yourself. The challenges that are arising will ask you in each moment, who will you be next? And so in each moment, you can decide, will I be someone who is in alignment with my heart and with my calling and with my themes, or will I lean into fear and will I lean into my wounding, etc.? Or will I use this opportunity to heal? There are many ways to go. But in terms of preparation, unfortunately, because this is your creation, and because there are infinite potential future realities, and because you are in linear timeline, if you were not, we would be able to speak to this more clearly, and it would be irrelevant. But because of these aspects, it is truly up to you what is going to occur, and therefore, how could you possibly ever occur or ever prepare for every possible outcome? You cannot. But what you can do is train yourself that whatever the possible outcome, you will be able to find a feeling state that is beautiful.
That's amazing. Thank you.
We thank you. We have time for one more question if there is.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Do you have any suggestions for people who wish that they had a stronger connection with guides like you?
Well, there is a guide that each of you has that is of utmost more importance than any connection one could have with us. Because if you have listened to us speak in the past, and perhaps many of you have, what you have noticed is while we are able to explain concepts very easily, we are not that connected to your human experience. And in that disconnect, much of what we share with you can remain only conceptual. The living part is a little bit more difficult, and we do understand this and have compassion for it, because you will continue to feel your feelings. You will continue to have new desires. You will continue to have conflict with your friends and your family. You will continue to have catalysts and experiences that are not to your preference and not know how to get through them. And you will have those challenges. We were going to say beautiful challenges. They are beautiful. And having connection with us, and you can even ask our vessel, is wonderful in that there's much wisdom and much love there. But is it indeed practical for day-to-day living? She would say it was not, because we know she does not consult with us on a day-to-day level. But what you do, each of you have direct access to at all times, is your own higher self, which is an expert on your life. That being with whom you are connected, which is you, does know the future. If you would like to predict the best possible future for yourself, you have a immediate and constant companion to tell you which steps to take. And the answer and the way to read the dials on that guide or read the pages of that guidebook is by how you are feeling in any moment. Your emotions are your communication with your higher self. That being is wise, and it does have every potential outcome from the moment you wake up and even while you are sleeping as to how to deliver to you the best possible life. The trick is to allow your mind to do its job, to be the wonderful computer that it is between your ears to process information in this world, to deliver that information back to your higher self so that your higher self can begin to make all of the decisions. and then to listen to those decisions as they are being transmitted through you in the form of emotion. And with that, we will leave you with the light and the love of 1,000 suns. Anainai.
Thank you so much. Welcome back. Oh my goodness. That was incredible.
Oh, good.
Really fascinating. It was almost at times like you couldn't speak fast enough. They couldn't speak fast enough through you, which is really interesting because the content was so expansive and so brilliant. I mean, it's things that I think I feel that, as a human, it would take me a long time to kind of make the connections and create the analogies and try to kind of, get it quite right. And so that was brilliant. Thank you so much.
Nice. I'm so happy. I'm
What a
so happy you liked it.
blessing.
And that, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, this has just been incredible. Thank you so much. Please tell people how they can connect with you and find out more about your work.
Okay, absolutely. So my website is www.jpherman.com. That's Herman. And there you're going to find a lot of, more about what I do. I do this one-on-one. I have group sessions that people can come to. I do pranic healing and also coaching. So I'll coach people through longer periods together where we can work on things that are going on in their lives. I also have a YouTube channel. So you'll be able to connect to that through the website because I don't know like the actual URL of that or anything. So please do check that out. There's tons of videos. I think I just hit 350 videos or something recently, and there's a wonderful community there. So many like-minded people. They're always commenting, and it's so much fun to be over on YouTube. And yeah, that's really how to get in touch. I'd suppose that's the best way to know what's up to date.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again so much. I really appreciate it. I've had so much fun with you.
Me too. Really wonderful.